a secret now. I see dead people.
Welcome to Blondes and Booze. You are about to embark on a journey, one that often leads to more questions than answers. But fear not, your host, Krista, Aaron, and Brandy have the experience, the perseverance, and yes, even the gifts to pull back the veil and allow us to glimpse the other side. They will share not only their experiences, but will introduce you to world-renowned researchers and experiencers to help you find answers in the murky waters of what we call the paranormal. Their bonds with each other reach far beyond friendship, resulting in a pull-no-punches approach to the many subjects they explore. Their goal? To open eyes, hearts, and even minds to what lies on the other side, and the answers residing there.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. We appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Happy Thursday.
Yes, happy Thursday. I'm so glad it's Thursday.
Me too. Are you working tomorrow?
I am not working tomorrow.
Lucky you. Lucky you.
I've already done my time this week. I work extra long days, so I'm already done.
Gotcha. I hear you. I'm kind of, well, I got a full day tomorrow, but I am off this weekend. I have a family thing I'm doing, so.
Awesome.
One more day. So I'm ready to be done. We as a lot of you guys know, my daughter is pregnant and we're waiting for a baby any day. So send some positive vibes that baby comes out sooner than later. Yes.
Right.
She has an induced date, but it's not until August 22nd and she's ready to be done.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to make it.
I don't either. I hope not. She's miserable. So anyway, everybody said some positive vibes. And if it happens to be a Thursday or a Friday and I'm not here, y'all know why.
Right.
That's it. So why don't you remind everybody what to watch this week, Brandy?
Sure, absolutely. On Mondays at 8 p.m. Central, it's Texas Front Porch with Tex and I, of course. Make sure you go to each and everyone's channel because we are no longer simulcasting with each other. So just remember that. And also check your subscriptions. Make sure everything's okay. We have noticed a little up and down with our subscribers. So, make sure you check that and didn't lose your subscription because I'm telling you what, they're doing the crazy stuff again. So make sure you do that. On Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, it's Van Buren Variety with Bob Van Buren. On Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, it's Bigfoot Michigan Rob with Beyond BMR. On Wednesday it's 10 p.m. Central right now, but it's Danielle Diva and the Diva Dimension starting next week. It will be starting at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, so make sure you change your calendar on that. On Thursday at 12 p.m. Central, it's Bigfoot Michigan Rob again with Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and his lovely co-host Krista. And of course, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central, you have us, Blondes and Booze. And on Friday, again at 8 p.m. Central, you have Blondes, Booze, and the Woo. Saturday, Tex and Danielle will also be dropping their newest episode at 2 p.m. Central on Saturday of Infamous Minds. And that's
you got that all down pat.
Yeah, that's it. There's no more right now.
Right. Speaking of Rob, Bigfoot Michigan Rob,
yes,
we both have his. Yeah, so I suggest everybody out there. I've started reading, and last night I read some more. I'm about 9 stories in, and it's pretty interesting. I got to tell you, there's some creepy stuff out there. It's worth buying. It's worth reading. And Brandy, you got a copy sitting by you? There you go. And you can order his book on Amazon. It's worth getting. And the cover is done by our very own Jason McLean. So very cool.
Yes, isn't that cool? Get it on
Yep.
Amazon and get it on Amazon.
Right.
I'm
Right.
Vanna White. I'm Vanna White. Okay.
There you go. Well, we have Mr. Barry Littleton tonight, and I'm pretty excited about this. He's very knowledgeable in just about whatever rabbit hole we want to go down. So I'm not going to waste any time, and I'm going to bring him up. Hello there, sir.
Hey.
Greetings. Hello, Brandy. Hello, Krista. Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Glad that you agreed to come on and do this with us. I definitely appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I had the pleasure of meeting you in person in Grafton.
Yes.
And that was cool. We went to a cool restaurant, got to hung out with your husband. He cracked me up a lot. He was cool. So I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
For a non-believer, huh?
Yeah, that was a nice conference, the whole thing. And oh yeah, he was great.
Yeah, he behaved himself.
Yeah. I say
I don't
anything
forget what he
about the paranormal, cryptid, anything, and I can't repeat what he tells me.
It's so funny. We were talking about, it was a secret space program type of conference type. And he said that, he looked over at me and he looked at me and he goes, oh, if it's a secret space program, how the hell do you know about it?
Right. He says that kind of stuff to me all the time.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, it was a fun night, though. We had good food and good company and right on the river.
It was nice seafood. I enjoyed that. And he taught me about the dreaded buffalo gnats. I was wondering what was killing me and everyone out there. It wasn't normal mosquitoes. Those things are vicious creatures.
Yeah, they'll get you.
Black flies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they are awful, awful, awful. Nana
Yeah,
Boss says,
you're-
"Oh,
you're
got me too." Nana Boss was here at my house here not that long ago, and she says, "Oh, he got me too." That's good.
Greetings to her. She's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, it's all good though. You are just like a wealth of knowledge on just about wherever we want to go tonight. Everything from aliens to the cryptids to ghosts. I mean, you name it. You've either experienced it or researched it or something.
Oh, well, thank you. It's just the illusion of cyberspace. Just a very strange, stressed out brother. That's about it.
Yeah,
Right.
I hear you. Let's start off going down like a cryptid hole.
Cool.
And do you have any encounters or anything yourself with any of these creatures or?
Well, I'm a star being extraterrestrial contactee. I've had a lot of interaction with beings that are either from star origin or also interdimensional to that degree. Some humanoid, some completely non-humanoid. I've been on a few crafts too, and I have a retention of knowledge of the craft I was on and also the operations and some other things of that nature, and I think I'm honestly one of just millions. And I always believed that, but with the platform I've been given now, I can tell you that honestly, what I always thought, around between 75, 80% of our population are contactees. And a lot of it happens on the superconscious level, the subconscious, and almost the dream state, and it gets missed. It's not always fully conscious or physical encounters like what I had. So that's one thing. So I'm one of those people that, has had a lot of paranormal experiences, even to where like I'm not a young man anymore. And in 2016, 17, and 19, I got invited to that ranch in Washington off Mount Adams to speak. And, immediately my world got stopped the first day I was out there with encounters with whether it be Sasquatch or whatever that device is in that mountain that is actually, I think, reading people's soul life memories, and then producing some type of an orb that gets in your biofield and gives you something that perception that pushes you forward. How many people's out at that ranch have seen a Sasquatch walking across the field that disappears out there, or have seen something in the sky out there that really is just something that pushes you forward perception wise. So, that's a real part of that area out there. And it's not the only place, but an interesting one. So I think some people like us, we go to these locations, we become almost a magnet for the paranormal. Sometimes, like when I was growing up, I thought I was chasing this stuff. I didn't realize it was chasing me. I think that's a lot of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. What? You have a question here, real quick. We'll just ask you real quick here. Nana Boss says, can Barry talk about the RH connection?
RH negative. Well, interesting how that, Ancient Aliens really brought that kind of to light there, and how that is the genetic that has been introduced to us that is non-terrestrial. And, it's interesting now getting further into this, how many people that I encounter that have intense lifetime contact that are RH negative.
Wow.
And that's whether that's the camp that comes from the positive encounters like me, or this more SSP negative targeted individual camp. Because both of these events are happening, but we're just different in that way. But I think part of my wish is to bring these groups together, because we're all contactee and something's happened to a lot of us. And it's a matter of figuring out how much of it is demonic and dark versus the positive. Those beings that are working through the divine field versus those that are these, those are these lower beings that are these grays, these reptilians, all the things we're familiar with in the media, especially these lower class level beings from our local Milky Way galaxy. It goes way beyond that. We're dealing with thousands and millions and trillions of galaxies, and the amount of thousands of beings that are interacting with here, it's unreal.
Right.
Sorry, I feel like I'm going away from what you're saying, so I apologize. Bring me back in. Really back in.
No, you're good. I am RH negative, as is my daughter. And it just that, when she said that, that really fascinates me. How does one know if they've been a contactee or an abductee, or
I was going to ask that.
What a great question. Sometimes I've been blessed enough to speak at several of these conferences, and some of them, I will pick up on somebody, I stole a term from Doctor Who called Artron energy. But the truth is, when somebody's been either on board one of these craft or around these beings and the Kundalini, the energy they have, the life energy, it does something. It irradiates the cells of our bodies. And I can detect it on other contactees. I just know that they've been through something like that. Either been around the beings or the technology. So anyone that those people often will tell me, some of them at the conferences, oh, I have an experience just like yours. And sometimes it's unbeknownst to them. And I will say, before the era of drones, did you see a UFO? Well, yeah, I did. Did it kind of trip you out? Were you the only person in the group that saw it? And also, how long did you look at it before you kind of snapped to? It was just a few seconds, but it was just, I was entranced. The amount of information that is transmitted on the superconscious level and subconscious level on those frequencies and those vibrational speeds is unreal. And a lot of times it will happen. You see that and other people don't see it and it's just over. You go on with your life. Our awareness is completely consumed with just keeping our life in order here. Vibration, that takes about everything. But then in the following nights, maybe not even that night, but 2 nights later, you're having dreams about extraterrestrials or dreams about odd beings. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't put it with something you saw 2 days later that is a crowd of 10 people. You're saying, look at that thing. And 1 or 2 people can see it and other people are going, where?
Wow. Yeah.
You wouldn't think that a whole civilization, like, I'm going to go geek on you, all right? If you're talking about Star Trek, you wouldn't think that a whole federation would stop what they were doing to just single connect with you consciously. A whole civilization. And that's exactly what's happening.
Wow.
To a lot of us, those of us that have positive encounters. Anyway.
What do you think they want with us?
Why overall?
Mm-hmm.
I think one is, okay, I'll just get this out of the way first. One is we have something wrong in this solar system, in the Milky Way. It's a thing of slavery that's going on with, galactic wise. You have a lot of these races that are involved in slavery, and that's come here to Earth definitely. And you've got a whole group of people where I met you, Krista, that will talk about that know much more than me.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, but nonetheless, that's a realistic part of the contact phenomenon. So the negativity wise, you have other beings that want to control the stewardship of this planet. You have these other demonics that are feeding on awareness and life force of people like us here. Okay, so that's one thing. We get that out of the way. The other would be those of us that are coming from, when we talk about reincarnation and the work that I do, I've had to even accept more of that than I would have before. When dealing with reincarnation, we incarnate here mostly devoid of soul life memories. And we're supposedly immortal souls, up for debate, but nonetheless, there's something about our souls that are immortal compared to these bodies. But yet we manifest here and incarnate here devoid of soul life memories. And sorry, not to be negative, but that pretty much to me still sucks. It's like you're in the 12th grade, you're about to graduate, but you can't remember kindergarten to 11th grade. That sucks.
Right. Right.
And rather that happens because this is more a place of lost souls where we're wiped clean and sent to a prison planet, opposed to the fact that we're immortal souls that know the outcome of every quantum event, every quantum outcome, and we know everything God conscious wise, and there's nothing left for us to discover. So that means we're dealing with the ultimate adversary as immortal souls, which would be boredom. So the only thing we have to do is wipe ourselves clean and then reincarnate and learn it all again. Either way, and I think actually, based on the work I've done, past life regressions and things, it's really actually more than that, than it is this prison planet with all these false light souls and all this stuff. That happens too, but it's not as much as the divine plan. The divine plan, we have free will and choice of incarnation a lot more than what we think,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Getting on this reincarnation kick, I feel like, as far as past lives and stuff, I fully 100% believe in that. And I've had dreams that I am a peasant in Romania. And I feel like that was a past life of mine.
Have you ever done a regression yet?
I never have yet. No. And I'd love to do that one day.
I think you should. We could do one if you like sometime.
Absolutely.
I think probably it's more than a hunch. It's awareness, and I'd say definitely, and probably you've incarnated several more times than that here.
Oh yeah.
It's very interesting.
Just what I dream about, and it's most of my life off and on. I've had that dream.
It's interesting. Sometimes I'll do one modality of past life regressions. I'll do is life between lives, and the person will actually, go back to the beginning of the birth here, being in the womb, and then just before coming into the womb, and then the guide will come and take them to a place that I call the place of translation and reconfiguration, which can be an office, it can be a library, something, but this individual will show them like a ledger, these books, and the ledger will be this lifetime. And then they start actually incarnating, actually incorporating the lessons for their next incarnation and the evolution of it. It's fascinating, but every one I've done now, which has been many, they all have a choice where they go, where they incarnate, whether it's Earth-wise, solar system-wise, galactic-wise, or I swear to you, universal. Come up against that now. You get to choose what universe you incarnate in. We don't really know what we are in that way. But anyway, that's just something that I think is a very, very important when thinking about who and what we were. So, that, and when dealing with some of the star intelligences, we're dealing with incarnations that are being on not just other planets where we hear about the Greys, the Orion cluster, all the stuff we hear in the media. No, we've got all these other galaxies up there, trillions. Some of us are dealing with that. and life forms from that and incarnations there. And so there's a whole thing that goes into this integrity, that this whole quantum, what is it, where everything is connected right now. I mean, that it's very interesting. And I tried to veer off from that somewhere because we're a little bit disconnected, but I keep coming back to that, and it comes back to source. And so that's kind of an answer to your reasons for why extraterrestrials, some of them are contacting with us. Some of us is because of the Earth matrix. The Earth is more and greater than all of us, okay? It is a creation. Some of them, are like the beings I've dealt with, are much more concerned about the Earth than they are humanity.
Yeah.
And so then the other things would be those that are trying to make us more aware of our soul life memories. So this place is not the prison planet it appears to be. And then the other would be this negative faction that's coming in here doing slavery, black ops and chimeras and these dark labs and underground bases and all that crap, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Brandy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just had a question, because I mean, now Barry, you're saying that they're with us, they're living amongst us, they're in contact with us. I always wondered, because I mean, the government is only telling us what we already know. They're not telling us anything new. How much do you think, in your opinion, that the technology we use today, how much is it alien technology, or how much is based on human ability in technology? I mean, it just seems like that we have just made leaps and bounds over these last couple of years, and it just makes me wonder. I mean, I don't think we could move that fast in technology. I think we've had some help.
Absolutely. And when I say that, one thing that I've based a lot of my contacts on, people get upset, but I enjoy science, and science gives a foundation for these experiences more than just this woo-woo everything. You know what I mean? And what you're asking right there is, I've seen things during my contact that was a kid that I can describe. I've described several videos on my YouTube channel, but it's things that are like happening now. You're seeing turning out in the public sector. So that means it's been back engineered for how many decades?
Right.
One being like, when I started describing, I started talking about this in 2014, ladies. All right, that the ships I've been on board had an they gave me how they're constructed. I was told, but like, one faction is that there's a fungus component, like mycelium. Another that are these minerals that are metals that are mined from planets that are devoid of Van Allen belts. So they hit type of solar radiation we're unfamiliar with here. They use that, this fungal component, and also a DNA from the crew, and also a quasi-crystal component, what our science is now calling quasi-crystals, which are grown in the lab with these weird lattices. But they're combining all that to actually grow these ships, like over what we call wormholes and black holes. So that's the ones I'm involved with, but that's an organic component also. So when you deal with stuff like that, or an engine I've been around, I thought it was, let me rephrase that, I'm sorry. I think actually it's more the brain of this craft, and I call it the gyroscopic engine. But what this thing appeared to be, first of all, it's very big, and I saw this when I was 17. All right, this thing is actually, it's got a ball in the middle of it that's glowing. It's gold, but it's this ball with what looks like hexagons in it. And it starts moving, and there's these rings around it. Okay, and it's glowing, and it's moving, and it starts projecting. It's projecting this glow that goes up. It looks like a building almost, the way it goes up to the top of this black box. All right, now looking at that gyroscopic, this ball I just described, going forward, 30 some years, 35 years, we have something now that we discovered that's C60, and also what's called fullerenes. Fullerenes look like what this thing was. And then years later, I see the movie Contact with
I know what movie you're talking about, but
Jodie Foster. And she
Cautious,
had
yeah.
the rings were going around that thing that sent her into hyperspace.
Yeah.
I was like, whoever saw that, they've seen it.
Right.
They've seen that thing I've seen for real. This is a real device. It wasn't just me being in astral form. I was near this thing physically. And it created a certain type of a hum that sounds like with the doggone elder goes up on that mountain and he swings that beetle. I think it's called a bull roar, but it boom, 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 boom. It's a certain sound. All right. And so anyway, I'm sorry to bring all this up to say that these are things that our science are showing that, like I saw long before, and you have other contactees that go way deeper than me, I'm sure. So that's just one example. And there are other things. Even when I speak of the mycelium and the mushroom factor, people laughed at me in 2014. But not long after that, years later, you have NASA announcing that they're going to do these habitations on Mars or the moon that involve these mycelium housing, and how they're actually using mycelium to repair infrastructures in cities right now.
Yeah.
So that takes us into all of that, this whole connection I'm just saying. And the mycelium, the mushroom factor, brings in the living factor. And when we see, how some of these organic craft would interact with our planet, we need to look at the tree system. Look at how fungus and how mushrooms, if you take off the hypha, it actually looks like a ship of a type.
It does.
And the symbiotic connection they have with the earth. That's very important. What's called the deep biosphere, where 95% of Earth's bacteria lies undiscovered, and also fungal components also. So you see some of these craft going into the sea or going into the ground, they're not necessarily always going to these bases. They may be going to communicate with the earth. Wow. A whole other thing going on organically, but we don't hear about that in these circles of the media. They just want to talk about grays, negative encounters, and all this other stuff. Or it's sequestered. What I'm talking about is sequestered, Anyway.
Yeah.
Food for thought if nothing else, ladies, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You definitely give me stuff to think about.
Right. I'm just sitting here going, okay. Yeah, because you haven't even thought of these things until you're bringing them up right now. I mean, because you're right. Because a lot of the things that we hear about contact or experiences or anything, they've all been pretty much negative. You don't know if it's because the person was so scared that, that this is what happened to them, that they're not realizing what, the good things that did happen. So, I mean, you're putting it in a different perspective for me, which is really cool. I like that.
And the other factor is, by all means, that does happen. You've got individuals that are targeted, horrible things happening. I'm not denying that at all. But there's another faction. I've done a lot of work and interacted with Ray Hernandez a lot, if you know who that is. He runs the CCRA, formerly called FREE, the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Extraterrestrial Encounters. And they put out this survey. There was 5 phases of this survey all over the world, and thousands of contactees responded. And they were really intense surveys, but the people from Harvard, like, excuse me, Dr. Rudy Shields and people like that are involved with that. And it's really interesting what they did and the hard data. And when you see the graph of like thousands of contactees that answered, were your contacts negative or positive? The graph, they're incredibly skewed to positive contact. And the part of unknown is fairly, good size, but the negative is really small. Even when he asked the questions about like the reptilians, they asked that. For me, when I took the first phase of that, I had to not answer that because I've not encountered the reptilians, all right? I've seen a bunch of beings on these ships and other things, but the fact I've not seen a 9-foot bipedal crocodile is cool with me, whatever. But when you look at that graph, it's actually incredibly skewed to, there's a bunch of positive on there, a huge part of it negative, but the negative are unknown, and a small part of it negative. When I asked Ray, I said, well, how is that? Especially with what we hear about the reptilians all the way around, the figurines, everything, and he said, and I said, what's with the, the middle part, the unknown? And he said, Barry, you have to fill out a couple of sentences on that and just answer it. He said, everyone said the same thing, that it wasn't a negative encounter, but encountering these beings physically was so scary and traumatic that it almost screwed up the entire contact, but they didn't actually do anything to them.
Wow.
And that's just not what you would expect to hear. By no means am I going Mr. Barry pro reptilians. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that we're not getting all the right information. Something's off,
Right.
and there's different factions and all that. And just what we hear, so much of what we hear in the contact phenomenon, excuse my language, is BS.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say it include a lot of these gurus we're seeing that get so much media attention. You've met them. I've met them. A lot of them are full of it. When I meet them, okay, they make these big claims. When I meet them, I should feel this Doctor Who term, I said Artron energy. I said, which means you've been around these entities or on board these craft. I can sense it on other people. And a lot of these people making these huge claims, I don't sense anything on them. That doesn't mean that they're not, but it makes me very leery as to where there's a couple others that are very well known that I won't mention, that they want to try to hug me or touch me, but I feel that energy on them. And as quote unquote whistleblowers, I may not like the bureaucracy that surrounds them, but as a contactee, I have to acknowledge first that they have this energy, that they've either been around some type of beings that are probably higher dimensional or also on board one of these craft, because the craft themselves are built around these wormholes, and they're using these makos, these black holes, to actually transport. So they're irradiated in that way, and when we get on board one, it irradiates ourselves in some weird way. And I can detect the other contactees, and ladies, I think the government detects it also. I stole that term Artron energy from Doctor Who, because that operates in a black hole also, that TARDIS he does. And when he drops people off and he's just gone, but they're irradiated by that Artron energy, and it gives the government a way to track them at a place where the Doctor may pop back up. I think that's not so much fantasy, science fiction fantasy at all. Not at all.
I'm like you, they've seen it somewhere.
Right.
Absolutely. A question for you, Barry. I wrote a couple of them down here. How old were you when you first realized that you were a contactee?
When it was undeniable, 7 years old, a lot of stuff started happening to me that was very odd. And then I could kind of write that off as possible imagination, or maybe even there was something wrong with the chemicals in my brain. Maybe later to start studying psychology to make sure it wasn't cooked or something. But then in the 6th grade, I had an experience happen that was so solid that it crossed over the weird things that were happening to me at night, like not waking up at home, waking up on board one of these craft, or the other things are waking up in the school that was like some sort of a room where they have you working on these different things, like to move the feather at first. Okay, move the feather, then you got to stir the water. Okay, then there are these metal balls you have to start floating around. There were these psychokinetic exercises, but I couldn't do that stuff at my day school. I couldn't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but these experiences, you think maybe there's something wrong, until I had this experience in the 6th grade, and I called it the acid rain experience. It's on my YouTube channel, titled under that. But I have a couple illustrations done about it. But it's where I actually woke up on board this craft and saw this engine that I've already described to you. And there's a being there floating that I had encountered before. And it's an insectoid, but it's talking to me, and it really, really threw me for a loop. And also they're talking about, I'm seeing these other craft in the screen. The craft I've been on board don't have windows, but they do, because they're organic. But they do have sometimes these screens. And I can see out, and I'm looking, looks like it's over a mountain pass, a snowtop pass, and there are 2 other crafts out there, and they're huge. And it looks like, honestly, like they're sucking up clouds into them and emitting a light.
Oh, wow.
And what this being is over here telling me, that the metals in our atmosphere and the microwaves and metals in our atmosphere are very dangerous, and the acid rain is very bad for our planet, and they're trying to reverse some of the acid rain. And I was in the 6th grade. I never heard that term.
Sure.
And this being is, first of all, honestly, it's very disconcerting because it is telepathically answering questions almost before I can formulate them in my mind. Okay.
Wow.
And and then getting that, because I want to say, acid rain, I never heard of that. But that's one thing that happens. And go forward, about a week later, my 6th grade teacher had us on Friday. She would have somebody come up, never forget it, come up and read the main article from this thing we had to do each week. Was called the Scholastic News.
Mm-hmm.
And this one on the front of it was the Statue of Liberty. And for all people, I got called up there to read, this article. One of those deals where a brother goes out there, you go out there, you're like, man, you hope you pronounce good. Or everybody say, oh, you can't read. That type of a deal. Very stressful. You know how rude kids are to each other. Kids are cruel to each other.
They are.
But reading this article, it was about that the Statue of Liberty that year had been shut off, at least a portion of it, because it had to be reconstructed and repainted due to damage from acid rain. And when I'm reading that, I remember saying acid rain real loud because I screamed it, because to see that in print like that. And I only heard that on this experience.
Right.
And that's something you can't, that's what I know. This is undoubtedly real. You know what I mean? Where it goes from one to the other. That's not that type of psychosis. It doesn't go like that. You know what I mean? So but that's when I knew for sure what was happening to me was definitely as tangible as I thought it was. Very real.
Yeah.
Touching things and doing things, so that would be the point for me. Definitely. Before that, I thought, maybe I could be nuts. Maybe I just had a really great imagination, but then stuff like that happens. There's no way around it. And those are what I call the childhood experiences. And in my experiences kind of laid off around 12 and a half, about 13 to about 16. And then they kicked up again around 17. They started happening again. And they were more intense. They were physical with missing time, missing time. And it's, that type of things when somebody else is with you and they see one of those craft come up and you're suddenly both missing, 4 or 5 hours, but you can clearly see these beings. You can clearly see the technology, the information that's relayed. But the further you get from the event horizon, the more it gets. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, quick question. Fades. Like our a lot of things like are hereditary, type thing. Is anybody else in your family, your parents or siblings ever had the same encounters as you, or, were you chosen?
Well, no, none of my family's had experiences quite like me. But I do have one brother, my oldest brother. He's had some encounters that would be with someone of star type. They're not like mine, though. He's a musician, and his tongue tends to come more musically. Yeah. What happened to him? Yeah, so a little bit different. He's also a much better astral projector than me. He's like astral projects all the time involuntarily. I had to work to try to do any of that.
Yeah.
So there's that. My family's been very open, and they actually, after my mother's death, my brothers had encouraged me to come forward to where I'm at now talking about this. Because believe me, the last thing after I died in a car accident, the last thing I ever wanted to do was tell anybody I was a contactee, especially lifetime. Are you kidding me? Yeah. The near-death experience was enough.
Yeah. When we come back from break here in, 20 minutes or so, I'd like to talk about that if you would be okay with talking about your near-death experience and stuff when we come back from that. But let's keep talking on this, because this was really fascinates me. Like, I guess I'm trying to pull it out in my head, like you've had so many encounters and you're so knowledgeable on it that, and me, I don't think I've ever had an encounter, of being a contactee or anything like that. And I guess it's playing in my head, like, how do you get chosen? How do you,
I wouldn't be so sure about that. I think one, have you seen a UFO? Number two, you've had a Sasquatch experience, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not the separate categories that we think they are.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, because I was leading to interdimensional when we discuss it. Now, Chris and I are firm believers that all of this is intertwined. How much or how little, we do not know, but we believe that it's all connected. And we also believe that, there are things that are flesh and blood out there. So that when it comes to aliens and say Sasquatch, do you think they're running hand in hand? I mean, because a lot of people are
Wow.
reporting UFO sightings with a Bigfoot experience or
Yeah,
vice
they,
versa.
they go inside. Right.
You know, honestly, the first time I really started looking at that in depth, it really laughs when I mentioned this guy, but when I was at this ranch speaking, like the second time, I met this gentleman named Tom Powell with an H, Tom Powell, and he talked me to death, and he's really cool, but he had so much, as he started off, he's, well, Barry, really, I'm the Sasquatch guy. I'm really not the UFO guy, but they're connected. And, that led to him and I talking hours.
Mm-hmm.
And something he had said that him and this guy with him, God, I want to remember the guy's name, but he was and I picked up telepathic information of this guy. He was definitely aware, and he claimed he could communicate with Sasquatch telepathically. And so there was this reservation that Tom said they went to, that was where they wanted to go there because the alpha had been seen several times, and it was a family, but he was like 12 feet tall, over 10 feet tall, and they wanted to get a look at him. So
Wow.
they went there. They went there, and the tribe says, well, we've only seen the daughter and the daughter and the mother. We've not seen him in a while. And the guy, this clairvoyant medium, he goes to wherever this place he communicates with them at, and the mother tells him that, he's gone. The green ones came and got him to do work. We don't like the green ones very much because they put us to work, but he'll be back when he gets done.
Wow.
And then we sat there, and I looked at him. I said, well, Tom, who in the HE double hockey sticks in the green ones,
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at me, he says, well, my friend David Paulettes wouldn't say it publicly, but privately he would say it's the reptilians. I just kind of looked at him. Sometimes people will say something that just stops you. It stops your world a little bit.
Sure.
That's what it did. You know what I mean? And I started thinking like, wow, if you dealt with the physical prowess of a Sasquatch, especially an alpha like that or whatever you want to call it, but what kind of creature could actually put them into slavery? They would need technology, one, but what would be physically prowess enough? Would it be a 14 tall crocodile, Draco type of beings that could do that with technology? Food for thought. And we start thinking about Sasquatch goes back to what would be a type 1 civilization here, which is what this was in the past, especially before 9,800 years ago, before those meteors hit there and caused the ice age. There was a whole other thing going on. So Sasquatch would have been part of the galactic trades or whatever was going on. They would have been a part of that civilization, and they still represent that now. We're just isolated from it. So again, not saying I'm right, but it's food for thought, all right? And when thinking about the connections and how many people say they've seen a UFO come up and then there's a flash of light and a Sasquatch is there, or how often they're seen together, it's not a coincidence. Coincidence is an excuse used by fools and liars throughout history, right?
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense because, I have heard a lot of encounters of both happening, Yeah, it's crazy.
That movie, what is it? Speaking of David Paulettes, that movie, 411, Missing 411 UFO Connection. I think he talks about that quite a bit, a little bit, connecting that a little bit more than what it is now. So,
yeah. This here, you know what? Janet makes a good point here. We'll put this up. She said, many of us have had genius level ideas that seem to come from nowhere. This might be a form of contact that others have spoken about.
absolutely. And sometimes I think they're improperly called, downloads, when the truth is it's open communication and you're getting it on the superconscious level. So it will happen a lot when you're asleep. When I get somebody hypnotized, I take them down to what they call theta level, lower theta, almost to delta. And it's amazing the amount of things that your superconscious and subconscious records everything. and we have access to. But how that connection, those beings that are using the divine field, the Akashic records, these things, which really are black holes, by the way, the Akashic records, they're really black holes. And people that can utilize that and that information, it's a whole nother thing going on. So I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. I haven't had
Cool audience. Nobody's throwing onions at me yet, so thank you for
No,
that.
they're not. We have the best chat. We really do. Like, they're open-minded to everything. They really are. They're really
Very
good.
intelligent too. I'm seeing cool comments. Very cool.
Yeah, lots of good comments. So what about, like, okay, the demonic entities? Do you feel like it's a form of alien life too? Or, I was taught, there's angels and demons, and, from the Bible, God cast them out, and the story. But how do you feel that plays into it?
I think that runs the gamut. One is, like I mentioned before, you've got these galactic citizens or civilizations that are into the slavery thing, like what Tony Rodriguez talks about. That's very real. Those remote viewing targets, blind targets I give to Jessica Jones, she has often come up against. One of them was another solar system. It's TRAPPIST-1. She has no idea what she's looking at. It's just numbers. But she's hitting me up. Barry, what city is this? What's with the high rises, and how is there open slavery like this? She kept picking up slavery again and again. Wow. She thinks she's looking at like somewhere in Vegas. You know what I mean? It's not. This is another solar system called TRAPPIST-1 that has 4 planets that are in the Goldilocks zone, the habitable zone of that star. And I wanted to see. I targeted her for 2 planets there. I want to see what she saw. I didn't think it would be that. I was like, maybe to get some type of either amoeba creatures or maybe amphibians or something like that. I didn't think it was going to be slavery and high rises in cities.
Right.
But I mean, that ties into what Tony Rodriguez and some of these other negative experiencers that have taken this type of target individuals or this SSP thing, and so I don't want to put that down, but you have people that have been traumatized by that. And for people like you and I, okay, quickly, when I talk about black holes, they're really called MACOs, magnetically eternally collapsing objects. That's what Rudy Shields calls them, and the information he had got. And what actually happens inside of that is something, the MACO itself is a mechanism inside the black hole. So when something goes through the black hole, like let's say this crystal goes through it, there's a perfect copy they call the quantum hologram produced on the surface, why the actual object goes through. But in reality, when universal information is going through, okay, it's creating actually a memory, and it's like around the accretion disk almost. And so that would be how the universe, that's what we call the Akashic records. Right. And they actually operate on the conscious level, what the scientists are calling conscious waves, which occur as both spherical and waves, but they occur spherical and helical. And within our bodies, we have these things called microtubules. For this conversation, we're relegated to the neurons of the brain, which is called the brain microtubules, which occur spiral also, okay? So if we're going to access these MACOs, the Akashic records, we do it consciously through brain waves. When I dealt with Rudy Shields, she took an interest in some of my contacts. And I'd asked him, I said, well, how fast do you all think that the speed of thought is? And he gave me some equation, some experiment concerning hydrogen electron orbiting. It was something, but he said that it was approximately 100,000 times the speed of light.
Wow.
That's what they thought. Oh. So if we're going to access these MACOs, the Akashic records, we can only really do it consciously, even before having a craft or anything. I'm just putting food out there, the food for thought. Microtubules of the brain. These are things people can look up. And when looking at what I just described as this perfect copy that goes through the MACO, Also, that translate into something we call the mirror neuron network. All right.
Right.
And the mirror neuron network is what I'm telling you right now, you can see in mind's eye. It also is connected to the monkey grab and release thing. But in reality, that's quite similar to the quantum hologram. We can see these things reproduced in our neurological whole other thing going on. So before I shut up, we may have civilizations that are what they call type 4, type 5, so far advanced that they're actually only using the space, these wormholes, these Makos themselves as a prime power source. They no longer probably exist, but they still exist within the quantum hologram, within the Mako, within the Akashic records, and they can use the divine field to interact with us through our brain waves. That's why it's so important when we realize we get saturated with negative encounters and all this stuff we get entrenched with down here. You may have higher beings trying to communicate with you, but you got your free will, and we are creators. The creative principle passes us as immortal souls in the creator's image. That's what that means. The creative principle passes us, so we can manifest things. And you have an encounter, you start manifesting, oh, they're grays, and it may be negative, but it may not be, but it turns it into that through your free will. That's no joke. So we have to be very aware of our thoughts, especially during the contact experience, and how they're hitting us with targeted weapons for those of us that are psychic or are mediums or tagged as with that Artron energy. We're born with that. So they're hitting people with that. They need experimental population, right?
Yeah. You know, you're going to be, tonight, I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to be looking up a lot of stuff. I mean, you've totally got me intrigued, and I've got a list here I've been writing down.
Thank you for that. Don't take the 52-minute mark.
We have to take a 5-minute break. You've been on enough of our shows. You know how that works with the Robs and Texas and everybody else. So we got to take a 5-minute break. But when we come back, guys, stay tuned. And wow, I mean, like you really have my brain thinking. So
thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's cool. We don't have any insects biting us right now, so we can talk about it.
No. Yeah, we can sit longer. All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes, everybody. Stay tuned.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And there's Brandy. She's back. She's
Well, I
back.
hear a little bit of feedback, so I was kind of like, well, I'll put on my earphones to see if it was me.
Gotcha. So you're hearing feedback? I don't hear anything.
You had some echo before we went to break, so I thought, well, I'll put on my earphones to see if it was me. But while
Gotcha.
we're here, let's talk about Rob's book.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, Rob wrote a new book. Go buy it. Amazon, get it.
It's pretty good. It's a lot of different encounters and stuff, and everything from Bigfoot to dogmen to other creatures, other beings. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
But it
So
is available on Amazon, so go get it.
yes. And if you get a chance and you ever meet Rob, I know he'll sign it for you. Barry, I have a question. People in chat been talking about seeing shadow people. What do you feel about what they are?
One thing is, you're dealing with negative inorganic beings, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They come from these different realms, whether it's the shadow realm or these lower vibrational realms. And when I was younger, I was obsessed with, trying to get actually the OBE, the astral projection, on voluntary command. So I was doing all these different things, and what it did actually, these different techniques, and what it did was actually augment the way that I could see and the way I was seeing psychically. And, I was getting to see the shadows moving, two different types, and more than just your peripheral. The peripheral is actually in black and white. So it's so much easier to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But I started being able to see them, tracing them, actually openly. And I see two different types. One were the little circles, little spherical ones, and the others were more oval. They were bigger. And I watched one of these things attack one of my coworkers. I worked this bowling alley through high school and college a couple nights a week. And the bartender, she's bowling after hours. We could all bowl if you bowled. I didn't, but this thing went to my, I saw it, and it goes down and attaches to about her crown chakra and elongates to about the right around the sacral chakra, the sex chakra down there, and it starts pulsing, turning from this black into this gray type of color. And she's just bowling so hard, she got what they call a turkey, which is like it's like 3 strikes straight. Yeah. And I was, are you all right? I said, "What? Are you all right?" She said, Well, you know, Barry, the stinking thinking is just getting to me. And that's when I realized, okay, negative emotions, this thing is promoting
Right.
that, negative thoughts, and it's feeding on her psychokinetic energy, loose, whatever you want to call that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
real. I think we don't have those predators. So those are the shadows I'd encountered. And then there's also, then you've got the shadow man, and then you've got the hat man, and these other beings that seem to be a little bit higher up than those by all means, and have some sort of demonic adjustment to them too. So you're dealing with negative demonic entities of some type, you know. And it's a shame because there's several reports times that angelics will come here and help, and their light, they seem to be dark here.
Yeah.
And it's not what they, you know, it's so it makes it very hard. Discernment is definitely needed, but
yeah,
that's the only thing I can really say about that. So,
well, Derek Galloway's in chat, and he's the one that brought it up. He said that he had seen his first shadow person the other night, and he says the experience was weird. I went to check on my daughter last night when she was sleeping, and that's when I saw it. So,
was it a hat man?
Somebody else said something about a hat man too. Maggie M10 says, I saw a shadow man in a hat walk through my kitchen. I didn't feel anything particularly negative at the time, but I nearly died the next day. Brainstem, TIA, small stroke.
Wow. Sorry to hear that. Wow.
Yeah. Interesting. So
yeah. And you know, you know, there's certain phenomena like them. There's also the black-eyed children.
Yeah.
And what I think they actually are, what I think the black-eyed children are, you know, it's I think it's a warning system. And when I say that, you know, when I was younger, there was this thing that came out. It was so popular in the early '80s. The Cabbage Dolls, the Cabbage Patch Dolls.
Yep.
You know, and there's actually something that came out that caused quite the controversy. They were called the Garbage Pail Kids.
Yep, I remember them.
Yeah. And they were supposed to be the survivors of nuclear war. I think maybe that's what those black-eyed children are. It's very interesting because one is how they show up. They always request entry, like you have to let them in willingly. Two, they have these sometimes wearing these black hoodies, and there are things about them that mimic the Men in Black. Okay, but two is, you know, the feeling they project into people. It's always a very negative one. And the one or two cases you see of people that say either their child touched them or they touched one of these black-eyed children, and the sickness that they go through a few days after that, boy, it sounds an awful lot like radiation poisoning. Just listen to what the people are saying. So I think maybe they come from a timeline, an Earth timeline, where nuclear war is destroyed, and what they've seen and been through radiation otherwise has made those black eyes. And I think they're here as a warning system. Try to keep us on maybe the right timeline. That's my thoughts anyway.
You never hear of, you know, people, they always want in, you know, be it a car or a house or something, but you never hear of anybody letting them in. And that's why I wonder if those people survive.
You know, around 2017 or so, when I started really talking about that, I said, I predicted that that phenomenon of them wouldn't persist. This warning system wouldn't persist. And you stop hearing about them so much. And right now, how many accounts do you really hear about black-eyed children? Not that many now. At least I don't. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. I find that interesting. Brandy has her ideas too, kind of similar to what you said, kind of, you know, on what they are. You know, a lot of people think they're demonic. Brandy's up in the air, but she had me thinking. Tell them, Brandy.
Well, you know, I got to thinking because they're trying to say that they're more paranormal. I don't believe that they're paranormal. I really don't. I believe that they are along the line of alien, that you're right. They come from a different timeline, a different dimension, a parallel dimension, something, but they are not of this world, and they're sent here for some reason or another. You know, and why do they always approach people when they're by themselves? I don't know. And it's like Chris and I were talking about, maybe when we don't hear about people that let them in, maybe it's because they don't make it or they disappear. Could this be
That's a good point.
some of our alien abduction? Could this be, something else? Who knows? That's
Good
why
question,
it really, it really
You know,
has
what
me
brings-
questioning everything about them.
What brings to mind when you say that is the instant where the lady left her child and her son in the car, and she went in to get something real quick from the store, and she comes back out, and a black-eyed child was sitting in there playing with her child, and she made it get out. And after she's one of the people that reported after being in the presence of this thing, I can't remember if she touched it or not, but getting really sick with this type of almost what sound like radiation poison. So yeah, it could be very much. We've got so much, it's a trip because we have so much, let's just face it, so much demonic factor and trauma that walks around this place like a member of the population,
Yeah.
and the negative entities, it's very easy for them to access here. Not just that, apparently, let's face it, it's easy for them to incarnate here. They come through the same incarnation all three of us did, and I'll tell you, some of these cats are completely devoid of love. They don't even know how to love. There's something really wrong. Not just destroying the biofield, but the biosphere, but they can't love. We've encountered people like that. There's people in these communities walking around like that. But they're sitting up there, oh, love and light, ascension, brother. I'm going to teach you how to ascend, when they're backstabbing demons. It's really a trip. I'm trying to say too much because I don't want to get people mad at me. But I mean, let's face it. It's like, wow, you have to have a lot of discernment in this place.
Absolutely.
you see, excuse my language. You see why the heck Sasquatch stays away? Anybody needs to question that? Why they say screw humanity?
Right.
Is that really, does it take a genius to figure that part out?
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. I don't know. Like, I think it was Miss Naoma. She said that black-eyed children, what'd she say here, are just about the creepiest thing I can think of. And I got to agree with her that just the idea of something coming knocking on the door like that,
See, that very thing, I think, is what makes them a warning system. Just that. And more than what she just said, those people that encounter them say the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's that feeling of something that comes from a timeline like that is so negative, so dark. And the way they're asking for permission to come in, the vampire thing, that don't help at all. The fact they often have on the black hoodies, that doesn't help.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, and it's and all these, you've got all these dark factions down here that are doing something, and how closely the densities are here. When you start realizing, especially the people that are like you are going out in the field and doing those things, you see how often these phenomena are really crossing each other.
Yeah.
And it's so we can say it's interdimensional, multidimensional, or density. What that really means, we don't fully know, but there's something real going on. Like even when saying, like, are you familiar with the guy that wrote the I Fought the Ape Men of Mount St. Helens?
No,
he was part of the Ape Canyon. He wrote the Ape Canyon, Canyon. But
I know about
pick his name, but he's the one that actually shot one of those Sasquatch. He was the first people to say that he believed the Sasquatch were manifested beings, and that they manifested only around people when people are near, like kind of through the morphogenic fields is what we would say.
Right.
And and he started giving the examples of how oftentimes they saw the tracks disappearing after they shot the one that fell off the deal, and it was no body found. And several things he said, he kept acknowledging the paranormal aspect of them. And obviously there's some of them that are strictly blood and flesh and blood. Okay. But if we were going to get really fun with it, all right, and I will ask you a question. Are you ladies familiar with like Carlos Castaneda?
I've heard of him.
Okay, he talked a lot about. Oh, sorry. What's that, Brandy? Sorry.
I not me. I'm sorry. I'm writing his name down right now.
Oh, sorry. He wrote a series, and he was actually an anthropologist that was working at UCLA, and he wound up hanging out with this shaman, this medicine man that called himself a sorcerer. but he actually was part of the Toltec tradition. And what he actually showed this guy was all sorts of ways of altering your perception, and how we've got two sets of people that are incarnate as warriors, one that are dreamers and one that are, you call it stalkers or gatherers. But these are the dreamers, are the people that incarnate. Their natural ability is, when I go to sleep, I can dream lucidly, and I can actually control my dreams in a whole nother level, to where sometimes I don't even know if I'm asleep. I can dream awake. And then you've got other people like me. I have to act a certain way and gather energy here in the third dimension, because I'm very aware, to make sure I have enough free energy to dream lucidly. Okay.
Wow.
So their ultimate whole deal practice was bringing your cognitive abilities into the dream body fully. So when you're asleep, your whole full cognitive is there. But then they were able to bring the dream body here and make it more corporeal, to where his teachers were showing up with him. He's saying their eyes are really bright. And then one of them starts jumping around, defying gravity, doing things that makes this guy lose control of his bowels. And they're laughing at him. You know what I mean? But the truth is, they're in dream body, but he can't see them energetically. So they appear to be people like normally. And so my question to you would be, when dealing with that type of cognitive ability, what makes us think that some of these Sasquatch don't have that? If they're able to access the dream body in that, it would explain how some of them are sometimes impervious to bullets, don't leave prints, and all the things that are somewhat metaphysical about them. I did a video about that because I became interested on the amount of people that are like Bigfoot Project. That lady does all those reports, and how many of them would come down, people saying they come upon these Sasquatch sleeping, crashed out, sometimes crashed out in their barns.
Wow.
But when you don't want to be around people at all, the last thing you're gonna do is go crash out around a human habitation. But are they dreamers?
Right.
And when they're encountered, they're bulletproof. Is that when they're in dream body, do they have that much cognitive awareness? Food for thought. I'm not saying even all 5 types, or the types, all of them do, but there's some of them, there's something different about them.
Yeah.
That may be one of the things. And where do some of these Toltecs, where does all that stuff come from? You start dealing with ancient Earth. A lot of this stuff was shared knowledge. Food for thought. Okay?
Absolutely, it is. What do you feel about dogmen? Do you feel like they're on the same level as like the Bigfoot?
You know, kind of. Not especially. You know, the thing is this: I've not heard until recently. I never heard an example of dogmen using portals like you hear Sasquatch using or disappearing. It's not quite the same thing. And then going back and looking, like historically, you have things like, what is it, St. Christopher, the dog-headed saint, and these reports of these dogmen throughout history in terms of trying to even interact with humanity and trying to be in civilizations. It's quite interesting, you know? So I think that maybe we're dealing with something a little more physical there. I could be wrong, but they seem to be more physical. And all the encounters I hear them, it just never seems to be that much metaphysical stuff connected with them like it is Sasquatch. I mean, you're lucky to hear one of these fools saying, "Oh, I never heard anything with Sasquatch metaphysical." They got to be blood and flesh. There's too much other stuff going on there. Just their ability, even if they were just strictly hominid, which they're not, the DNA, the DNA, like, especially David Paulides did that last DNA deal with that robot. I mean, that's really killer evidence showing that actually the nuclear DNA is something completely different. I don't know what it is. It's not even a gen bank, so it's not terrestrial. And that gives enough right there for them to be able to cross the bridge of what I just said about being dreamers. Food for thought again, okay? Oh, sorry, it's about dogmen, but dogmen, I'm just not getting, I don't hear anything like that beyond them being werewolves, maybe eating people. So you want to hear? And you know, when I had talked to one of the great whistleblowers that so much controversy is around them, one-on-one, talk for hours and hours. So I say, "What do you think about dogman?" And he said, well, they're just the offspring of this galactic species that specialize in body parts. They trade body parts galactic wise. That's what they do.
Wow.
I can't say it's real. That's true, but that's again food for thought.
Yeah, that's scary. Brandy and I, we go to the LBL, Land Between the Lakes, every now and then and do, some investigating. And there's a little bit of everything there, from ghosts to the cryptid side of things. And we did witness, there was about 10 of us, we witnessed some kind of beings peering from behind trees. And it was close to when the sun was going down. And then after that, we shine lights over there and there was absolutely nothing there, but we all saw it. And then after that, throughout the whole evening, and it was probably another 5 hours we were there, we were all seeing different orbs, different sizes, different colors. I have no idea what that was, so it really, I don't know. It's really opened my mind up to a lot of different things, with seeing those orbs.
Well, let me ask you this question. What do you think about the connection between Sasquatch and trees?
I don't know.
Okay, like the things that stop our worlds. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this individual again, Tom Powell, that wrote this. One of the books he gave me was called Beyond the Fringes of Science, and he had these Sasquatch on his property. I mean, he had these many. I mean, not everybody stops me like that, and I talked. I mean, interesting cat. Okay, but wow. He says this to me as we're talking. He says, well, Barry, they live in trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped. I was like, I'm looking at him. I said, what do you mean, like arboreal? Because I've heard that before, that they live in the great forest, in the California redwood forest. They have those redwoods have these huge canopies.
Right.
And that they actually live up in these canopies.
Wow.
And I've heard that several times, and that some trees have certain markings on them. You can see that they go up them. Just had heard that before. So I said, do you mean arboreal? Or he's like, no. I said, what do you mean? Like they hollow out the truck, like Gilligan's Island thing? He's like, no. He said that they can actually symbiotically merge molecular with the tree.
Yeah.
And, and again, that's something that just stops me.
Mm-hmm.
There was something real with that really resonated. So it set me on a very much obsession, finding out more about that.
Yeah.
And that leads to the people that are saying that, they've seen Sasquatch coming out of trees, and how, and then I had experience with one of these things, and it was some sort of shapeshifter. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I talked to Tom about it on the phone, I was like, man, I had some sort of experience with this shapeshifter thing. And he had told me, he said, keep this in mind, that they also can shapeshift into tree stumps.
Oh,
and then when I started thinking about the amount of accounts you hear people saying it was a tree stump, but then it stood up. Mm-hmm. And it was something that you wouldn't, you know what I mean? And then going to Europe, they have something called the Green Man, the man of the forest, but the Green Man. Look into that. He looks an awful lot like Sasquatch.
Wow.
You start hearing reports of things about some of the blood that the military got from them, and that it contained large amounts of chlorophyll.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Food for thought. How some of the when you look at some of the poor guy that passed away, Scott Carpenter, but they had done those tests on the hairs, and Pauletti's has too, I think, and they show the translucent effect to them. Some have a green tinge to it that would ability to give you that predator type of look from the movies.
Yeah.
So this is just, again, food for thought. And I don't think every species of Sasquatch can do it, but one type can. And, it goes even to this, all right, before I shut up, that when people are hearing some of these tree knocks, that the truth is that's how the Sasquatch are manifesting out of these portals, and through they use the trees to do it. And it creates that knocking sound. And that they can only do it so many times with each tree because it drains the tree.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
These are things that are just worthy food for thought. But you've got the people that they're just the strictly animal camp. They don't want to deal with that. And when I had some kind of telethought communication with what I thought was a Sasquatch elder at that ranch in Washington, but I can't prove it. Like I told Tex and Rob, I can't prove that. It could have been that device out there. It could have been the land. It could have been something else. I can't prove it was Sasquatch. But
Yeah.
whatever it was doing emotionally was doing a pretty damn good imitation.
Mhm.
That's all I'll say concerning that. You know what I mean? So,
Right. Right. Yeah, it makes sense to me. Totally.
yeah.
And that whole evening, I mean, we could hear something surrounding us. And actually, Letitia Nunley was there, and she got up and moved because we heard it, but she felt, like it was coming in from behind her. But then we'd shine the lights, and there wasn't anything there. Not even as much as a rabbit, and there wasn't. This was in January, so there wasn't any vegetation, on the trees. So we had a good
Wow.
sight. It was
Mhm.
just interesting. It was a weird night. Yeah, for sure. It's crazy stuff. But you said something about the stump. Actually, in one of Rob's stories, talks just about that in his book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Is he on chat?
Actually, no, he did text me, and I'll tell you backstage.
Rob's
So,
cool.
yeah, he is.
Yeah, and so when dealing with them, whoever said that comment down there, I agree. And thinking
Yeah.
also if they are manifested being like the guy that wrote the I fought the apes of Mount St. Helens. God, why can't I
Mhm.
remember that guy's name? Anyway, but when saying they might manifested beings, that they're using the trees to manifest. That's one of
Mhm.
their tools for doing that. And we
Yeah.
hear all these things about them being interdimensional. Sasquatch is interdimensional. What the heck
Mhm.
does that really mean? We're talking about another dimension. Is it like another fourth one? Is it another wall? Or what is it exactly? That's not
Yeah.
very descriptive. But how did they really change densities and do this manifesting technique?
Mhm.
Some of them. Very good food for thought. We've got these things too, like I'm getting that you've encountered this, that you've got these beings that have imprinted so much in the earth during their existence that they like
Mhm.
create these echoes. And times I think the earth maybe manifests them at times.
Yeah.
I had just done something over concerning the K-Moss, and I wanted to make sure that isn't what they were, but it's no doubt those are real, some type of
Mhm.
creature, sea serpent.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. Wow. Let's I want to hear. I know we're jumping all over the place tonight, and I,
Right.
I appreciate you just going with the flow.
Well,
But
that's okay.
I want to hear about your near death experience, because that fascinates me with people who have had them, and some people have had positive ones, and some people have had negative ones. And I just, how was yours? What happened with yours?
Well, I just the trauma part of what happens just sucks all the way
Mhm.
around. But as far as perceptual wise, it was different. I was
Mhm.
actually it was in 2010. I was on my way to work, and I had a car accident, and I had a nice little anniversary 2002 like Trans Am Firebird, and I
Mhm.
wasn't wearing my seatbelt, and I went through many of the windows, including the T-tops.
Oh
Okay,
my.
and I
Wow.
sustained 4 catastrophic traumatic brain injuries, which was a hematoma to the frontal lobe, hematoma to the brainstem, hematoma to the coronal lobe, and then what's called DFA, diffusal axonal, which is similar to shaken baby syndrome, which means
Oh
upon
my.
impact, my brain turned in the case. Okay. So I
Wow.
had died on the way to the hospital like twice. And then I was in a coma for almost about 2 weeks. And
Wow.
then it took about a month to remember who I was after that. And when I say
Oh
that,
my
the
goodness.
pattern of decision making that I possessed, you know what I mean, coming back, and they could call it clear out. So I had a very definite near death experience. And,
Yeah.
even before I remembered who I was and had this clearing out, which would have been after I was already conscious, probably 2 weeks later, I could still see in my mind's eye and feel these angelics I saw. during the time I was dead, and I also saw loved ones. And you know, these angelics, we could use the term archangels, but there's a term in this thing called the Uranta book. The Uranta book calls a certain class of angels super nanophim, NAPHIM. And these super nanophim are similar to archangels, but they have a different function, but they're the same high level. And when I tell you this, these weren't like people, okay? These were light beings that were like 1,000 strands of light. Each one of them was a different color, but they're super bright. And outside of that were like these shields. That's what I see. When sometimes people put these beings with wings, but they're actually I'm a Star Trek guy. They look like shields to me. Outside, and then outside of these shields, it looked like, you know, when you see kind of a mirage on the road during the summer, where you can see the water and you see kind of the heat steams, the little waves. Yeah, that was outside of these shields. Okay? Wow. So that's what I saw, and I saw 4 of them, and they undoubtedly channeled enough love energy for me to be what you are seeing now. Okay, and I had to really try to qualify this because I had experiences my whole life. That happened when I was 36. I had experiences my whole life that have nothing to do with that at all. So anyone wants to disqualify that, like suddenly it's invalid what I'm saying. No good. Try hard. But anyway, so but I had to try to really actually compare what I saw, because these super nanophim, they were, you know, not gods, but they were regal. And I'm sure they were toning down so much of the love frequency. I think any more would have probably burned up my body, spontaneous combustion or something. And, you know, we don't think of pure love hurting like that. Not in our existence here, but it's something totally different when it's coming straight from Creator and from a source like that high up. So anyway, so that, you know, so I had to compare that to some of these non-physicals I've experienced on these craft that gave me a feeling that I think the gurus would call Shakti Pat. You know, Shakti Pat is when, you know, when the guru touches the disciple and they have this Kundalini release and the chakras turn. And it's like a moment of enlightenment that they all hope the guru will one day touch them and give them. But I think being in the biofield of some of these non-humans that really have this different energy field, this different biofield, advanced, something totally different going on, that actually it can cause us to have this type of Shakti Pat. It feels like that around some of them. And even after the encounter itself, there's elation that goes with you for, you know, a day or two for you crash down. Hard. But anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, you have a question from a Facebook user. It says, Barry, did you see any 2-dimensional figures that looked like jellyfish, butterflies, and even cartoon figurines while you were healing, not right after injury?
After my injury? No, I cannot say I did. No, I saw loved ones, and they were, you know, people, and it seemed like I was talking to them like I'm talking to you now. And but I could still see these super nanophim in my mind's eye. But I did not see anything butterflies or jellyfish. Now I have seen on board a craft in these glass tubes. And on my YouTube channel, I've got illustrations of this, but was done for me by Kasara, Christine Dennett. And inside of these tubes, these glass tubes, were different forms. Some of them were like plasma, some were condensed light, and one that looked like it could be almost jellyfish type of like, you know, different, but more fluidic, perhaps a fluidic being. So something like that I've seen, but that was on board a craft. You know, when I first would see these glass tubes, they're these eggs, these glass eggs, they're on like every room on the ship. But you know, at first I thought they were power sources. And there's a mist inside of them, even more thick than the mist that's on board this craft, that makes it hard to breathe. Okay, smells a little bit to me like ammonia, like Windex, more like Windex. but too much Swindex, yo.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's just one thing there. But anyway, just in response to that concerning butterfly or jellyfish type of thing, and be inside of that. I've got illustrations of that, but some of the forms there, I found out later that these weren't power sources, that actually we're dealing with parts of the ship that are connected to other universes. So when you truly have a multi-dimensional ship, a universal ship, you have some beings that don't come out of their environment, and that actually circular form is to their environment. Whole other thing going on there, whole another thing.
Wow. Well, you have given us a lot to think about tonight.
Absolutely.
I know. Talking too much, most likely.
No, you're good.
Food out by now.
I've watched you on Jessica's show. I've watched you, on BMR show and Texas show. So, I mean,
Thank you.
If I didn't think you were interesting, I surely would not have asked you to come on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Like I said, it was a pleasure meeting you in person. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll meet in person one day, Brandy. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We are at the 1.5 hour mark. Excuse me. And we will be back tomorrow night. We have Paul Blake Smith. And our friend Terry is going to co-host with us tomorrow night. So tune in tomorrow night to that. And once again, Barry, thank you very much. You're just seriously like a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. And I could sit and listen.
Thank you. Cyberspace illusion. Thank you both for having me. And thank you to the audience too. I appreciate you all.
Yep. Appreciate it. So tune in tomorrow night, guys, and we will see you then. Good night.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Good night.